Folks who are watching us this morning living out in, I don't know, Rancho Palos Verdes and maybe somebody out in Thousand Oaks or one of these other fairly well-off suburban communities, do they have anything to worry about?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we saw this in 1988. Karen Toshima was killed in Westwood. Yeah. And that's really the first time where we had a gang problem in LA. Prior to that, in 87, we had over 300 murders. In 86, we had about 300 plus murders. But it wasn't until 88 where people really started to stand up and say, LA has a gang problem, because Karen Toshima in Westwood was killed. That could happen at any time. You know, I just came back from being out of town, and there are gangs that are exhibiting LA type characteristics in other cities that are also doing the same thing, not in inner cities, but in suburban parts of those towns.
But they talk about the LA gangs being exported to other countries, and I'm sure they're talking about Latin America.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it exporting. What's happening is that LA gangs are so popular, and when there are gangs in other cities and states or countries that want to start their own gangs, they just look at what gangs exist. They want to copy an LA name, and they just either go on the internet or watch television programs and they get the names. I think there's a myth about actual LA guys doing all of this. It has existed. In the 80s they did do that when it was drug trafficking, but majority of gangs that are popping up in Amsterdam, Australia, and the Scandinavian countries are not LA guys going there.
There are really the ones in Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, those I can understand, but you've got them in Europe, in Scandinavia?
Absolutely. You got them all over the place. I get emails from law enforcement sending me photographs, you know, what is this? And I say, well, it looks like someone there is emulating LA gang culture. And we're talking about white youth sometimes, or other Indian youth, Pakistani youth in different European countries. So it's pretty much all over. It's really shocking to see how popular LA gangs have come, and I think it's been fueled through the media, through Hollywood, through the movies, because Chicago has a lot of gangs themselves, and you don't really hear a lot about
Rangers.
There's so many gangs in Chicago, but you know, it's the LA gangs that are just so popular.
And in the Scandinavian countries or the European countries, so they're dressing the part, they're playing the part, but they're not going around shooting each other like they do here.
Well, some cities are actually starting to see violence. You know, Manchester, England, London, Liverpool. They're starting to see violence in some of these cities.
It's not related to the soccer games.
No, you know, these are, there's actual, a lot of publications from professors at universities in Europe that are talking about gangs that are emulating LA culture. And we've seen it here in Central America, South America. I mean, it's just all over, even in Canada.
Even in Canada. If you were God, what would you do to change things?
Oh man, I would make fathers be there for their kids more than they are now. Every year there seems to be, even in both the black and Hispanic community, more and more kids being born to single parents. And I think it's just as simple as having a father raising their kids that would alleviate a majority of this, because that's the #1 feeder into gangs are kids from single parent households. And that's not to say that all kids from single parent households are going to be in gangs, but a majority of the kids in gangs do come from single parent households.